Hey, this is Marcus Buff Bagwell today, and I'm here today with a great friend, Ranger Ross, man. You talk about my career being 34 years long now. Well, 34 and a half years ago, I walk into a gym in Woodstock, Georgia, at this gym called Stack's Gym on Highway 92, and I happen to see this man right here, Ranger Ross, and I walk up to him and I said, hey brother, how do you get into that business that you're in?
Yeah, and I told him about a couple of people that had some wrestling schools and stuff like that, and told him a couple of people to meet, and hey, he did the rest. Next thing I know, he's out training. Then I saw you was the handsome stranger or something?
Well, first was Fabulous Fabian.
Fabulous, that's it.
Joe Pedicino.
Yeah.
And then after we talked to you, you directed me to Steve Lawler.
That was it.
And then when we went to Steve, he beat me up for a couple of weeks. And finally Steve goes, man, you got what it takes. And he started showing me a little more, and I was like, you've been beating me up for 2 weeks? So it was, Steve was a great guy, and he really was really good in the business. But what you didn't know at the time is I'd already spoke to Missy Hyatt. She'd been the one that put this in my ear, the bug in my ear.
Oh, wow.
At 1988, I was going to work for my parents' lumber yard, and that's what we were going to do. Well, they went broke that year. So I did massage therapy for a year, and then was at Missy Hyatt saw me at the pool, and she was like, hey, why don't you be a pro wrestler? And after that, I saw you at the gym that day. I was like, hey man, tell me what you do. So I was telling Chase a little bit about how it was at these TV tapings. So I walk in this TV taping as this young, good-looking, double young kid, and Missy had told me what I need to do, though, which I was a good kid anyway, but really shaking hands to the guys, and we're dressing outside of this auction barn. What have I got myself into? Explain how it was at that auction barn a little bit, man.
Okay, let me back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, you touched on something. You said you was a young, good-looking kid.
Yes.
And I'm not gay or nothing like that. I'm about as straight as an arrow, but you was a good-looking kid.
Yes.
Okay, and I say that because I'm masculine. You don't know how that affect other guys when you walk into the ring, because you instantly get heat. And when I say heat, you instantly get some friction.
Yes, instant.
And when you get friction, it causes heat. Okay, so you had a double-edged sword going against you.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, you was young, you was good looking, and you was athletic.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the older people look at you as like, oh my God, here come another good-looking kid, and they want to push him because of this. But
Not going to push me.
And they had, because you had talent.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of older guys, they don't like for young people to come in and people just hand them something.
Right.
Because of what they had to go through.
Right.
So what happened in the meantime is they'll try to keep you down.
Sure.
You know the theory about crabs?
No.
Okay, here you go. Take you to school here.
Hit me.
All right. You take some crabs and you put them in a bucket.
Yeah.
And when one gets up to the top, another one will grab him and pull him out, pull him back down.
I see this coming.
Okay, now see, you smell what I'm cooking here.
Yes.
So they don't want you to excel. When you get up to the top, they want to try
too much. Let's get you back down here.
So that's what they'll try to do, is to keep you down.
Wow, I never knew that about crabs. So here's the catch, though, and what ended up being, I think, my saving grace was somewhere in there. They saw that Marcus was a pretty good kid, I think. I know you did, but a lot of guys don't. But even the ones that it was heat instantly, with Missy's help of knowing to do the shake hand thing, I'm a nice guy anyway, but I didn't know it was that big a deal. So I learned that if you miss a hand getting shook, you're going to have more friction, more heat, But it's so amazing looking back on that friction, because that friction, as you can imagine, followed me for a long time.
I know.
And they called it in wrestling, they called it heat. And I've said on several podcasts and stuff before, in pro wrestling, they call it heat. In Marietta, Georgia, they call it jealousy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it was even when I got with Sting in WCW, I remember every one of the guys was like, "Why are you riding with that? It was that fat. Why are you riding with that stupid kid, that punk?" They had no idea who I was, and they were blown away that Sting was riding with me, and it really upset them. But when he took me in, it made them see that I must be something they're missing. And then Sting comes to play basketball at my house one day, and both Steiners, remember the old-fashioned recording machines? On my answering machine, both Steiners were on my recorder. And Sting goes, "Rewind that and play it back." And I rewind. I said, "What do you mean?" I rewind and play it back. And it was Scotty and Rick at their homes leaving 2 different messages on my machine. He went, "Those guys hated your guts just a few months ago." And I said, "I don't know, man." I go, maybe they finally saw that I'm a nice guy, but it was kind of like that. It was that friction that everybody felt. And then they finally said, Bagwell was a pretty nice kid, man. But that auction barn brings back so many memories to me, Ranger. Seeing you come out with the flag and all that, man. And who trained you?
Thunderbolt Patterson.
Did he really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Where at?
Well, here's the deal. I was in the Army. Let me back up just a little bit.
Come on.
Let me back up just a little bit. When I was in the 2nd grade, our teacher was asking everybody in the class what they wanted to be. And this would have been 1965. And everybody wanted to be an astronaut or a fireman.
Right.
And they come around, they got to me, "What do you want to be?" "I want to be a wrestler." And everybody laughed. My teacher pulled me to the side. Miss Ella, great teacher, she said, "Everybody say they want to do something, that's just a dream. But if you write it down, it becomes a goal." She made me write it down on a piece of paper.
Wow.
She
And
made
what was
me
her name?
Miss Ella.
And you still remember that?
I still have the paper.
Wow.
She told me to take that paper and put it somewhere that you could see it every day.
And then you did it.
So I tell kids when I speak to them,
That's a good story.
Whatever you want to do, write it down. It becomes a goal. Even today, even if you're grown, whatever you want to do, write it down.
That's fantastic.
Make it a goal.
Absolutely. So when you wrote that down, how old were you?
I was 6, 7 years old.
And then what year did you get trained with Thunderbolt?
Okay, now here we go. I wrestled in high school at 98 pounds.
Oh my God.
I was the skinniest kid. I wasn't skinny, I was po.
I was po.
I was po. That's what we say down in Georgia.
Po-pokes.
See, me and you Georgia
Yeah,
boys,
po-pokes.
we were po. I was
Yes.
po. So anyway, when I graduated from high school, I weighed 143 pounds.
Okay.
And I didn't see any 143-year-old,
Wrestlers.
143-pound wrestlers.
Nope.
So I joined the Army Rangers. I saw the Rangers, and I saw they was some tough dudes. And
Right.
they said this was the best of the best. So I joined the Rangers. And after 4 years of being in the Rangers, I gained some weight and got bigger.
Got muscled up.
But I still wasn't big enough. So I signed up for 4 more years. Now you got to understand, I'm doing all of this to get to wrestling.
Right. Wrestling is still written down. It is still your goal.
Yeah, but I did 8 years as an Army Ranger just to get to wrestling. So you tell me I didn't pay my dues to get to wrestling. And so when
I didn't know this part.
my last year in the Army, I had to make a decision whether I was going to stay in or get out, because I got 8 years in. All I need to do is 12 more years. I can retire.
Right.
I get a paycheck for the rest of my life. But wrestling, my goal is still there, still taped in my mirror. So I went to a wrestling match. I was stationed in Savannah, Georgia. Went to a wrestling match, and Black Jack Mulligan was standing out by the door, and I went and talked to him. He said, I told him about, I want to get into wrestling. He said, "Well, you need to talk to this guy over here." It was Pistol Pez Watley.
Pistol Pez.
Pistol Pez Watley told me that Thunderbolt Patterson was going to open a wrestling school in Atlanta, Georgia. He told me how to get a hold of it. So I'm in the Army. I drive up one weekend. I met Thunderbolt Patterson. He agreed to train me. I went back to the Army. I took 30-day vacation, and I came up and trained with Thunderbolt Patterson out on Old National Highway. He had a shoe store.
Like 1941 there.
Yeah.
No, this is the airport. No,
It's just south of the airport.
Just south of the airport.
He had a shoe store. It was called the Brass Slipper. He had a storage room in the back. He put some pads down, and that's where I trained.
Not in the ring.
Not in the ring.
On the floor.
On the floor. He had some pads down.
Thunderbolt Patterson trained you. What year was that? Do you know?
That would have been 1984.
Oh, man, no. So 8 years of Ranger.
Yeah, and so I'm still in the Army.
You're
now.
still in the Army. So now what happens?
I got to make a decision. Okay, is this what I wanted to do or not? So I said, well, I got to go for it. I'm not doing 4 more years in the Ranger. So I went back and I got out of the Army, came back to Atlanta, finished training with Thunderbolt, and then I went tried to get a job with Jim Crockett Promotion, and that didn't pan out. So I ended up.
What was the wrestling company Jim Crockett had? Wasn't WCW?
No, it was NWA.
Yeah, it was NWA. So
Yeah.
NWA turned to WCW.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Okay.
They bought out Jim Crockett.
So that was Cobb County Civic Center, NWA, right?
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Yes.
That kind of tapings and stuff. And they said
Yeah.
no to you.
They said no.
Okay, so what did you do
I'm
then?
gonna tell you why they said no. I'll never forget. I drove up there and I met with them. They said, well, we have a guy out here in Morrisville, North Carolina, that look at all of our new talent. His name was Nelson Royal. So they sent me up to Morrisville, North Carolina, which was probably another 50 miles.
Yeah, it was a long way. Yeah.
About another 50 miles north of Charlotte.
Yeah,
I
5
went up.
hours.
I met with Nelson Royal. Todd Champion was there.
Big Todd Champion.
Gene Anderson's son was there. I can't remember his name. But anyway, he put me in the ring with Todd Champion, and we worked around, and Nelson, said, hey, he called back to the office, hey, this kid can work, So anyway, I go back down to Charlotte. This is one day. I drove back down to Charlotte.
Right.
And I meet with him, and here it comes. I said, yeah, I want to get a job. And they said, well, we already have a black guy.
Who was their black guy?
Some guy named Joe Coltrane, and he ended up breaking his leg or something. But he wasn't I don't mean to bash anybody, but he was
a negative worker.
Yeah. So, but anyway, when I came back, they told me that. I mean, you can't have 2 black guys.
Yeah. What's this? Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, so I left, came back to Georgia. I went and met Ted Allen, start training with him, and then he introduced me to Jody Hamilton. Jody Hamilton gave me my break.
So Jody gave you your break. What a great guy to give you a break, Jody Hamilton.
My first match was at the Cobb Civic Center, live TV.
I knew it was going to be Cobb County Civic Center. That's what I said.
Yeah.
So that would have been 89,
86.
That early. Okay.
That was 86.
Wow. That's incredible because that's how long. So Civic Center was a long time y'all guys ran there for TV tapes.
Yes,
Because
yes.
I went there when Missy first just told me about wrestling. I went there one day. Don't remember seeing you, but I saw Lex, and y'all were having catering upstairs.
Yeah.
And then downstairs is where the ring was, but
Yeah.
there was an upper level.
Yeah.
Where y'all had catering.
Catering,
at.
yes.
And I was sitting there not eating a bite of food, and just Lex Luger walked up, and that's all I remember seeing that day. But I got the feel of how it went down,
Yeah.
TV taping, and just want to get a feel of it. But that's when Steve was, getting ready to train me and stuff. So that's crazy, though. So at North, so through Ted Allen, is that where Joe Pedicino come from?
Yeah, well,
Because you didn't do a whole lot of Joe, did you, or did you?
no, I didn't.
I didn't see you a whole lot with that.
Well, I didn't work for Pedicino. I worked for
So who were
Jody.
you?
I worked for Jody Hamilton. It was Deep South.
Deep South, that's what it was.
Yes,
Okay,
Deep
yeah,
South
okay, there you
Championship
go.
Wrestling, and I worked for them. Matter of fact, I was 6 months into the business. They made me the champion.
I love it.
I beat Randy Rose for the belt.
I love it. Randy Rose, yes.
Well, anyway, and then that started going south, and everybody went to Southern Championship Wrestling.
Who's the big promoter down Peach State area that was such a big name that did the big shows down around the fairgrounds down there? It was Deep South. God, I can't remember. He was like the Vince McMahon of independence down there. I can't remember his name. He's still in it. Anyway, you did Deep South while I was doing it.
Yeah,
While I was
so
doing
I was Deep South, and then everybody left and went over to Southern Championship Wrestling.
Southern.
Jared Blackwell.
Okay,
That's when we was at the auction barn.
Okay.
That was Jerry Blackwell.
Okay.
And I worked for him, and then next thing you know, I got a call from WCW.
So they called you.
Yes.
Who called you?
Jody Hamilton.
Jody called you.
Because Jody had shut down Deep South, and everybody. And so this is about a year later, and then he went to work for WCW, and he called me and he told me, "All right, kid, I want you to come down here and look presentable." So we went in and met with George Scott, and George Scott, he laid it all out. He had a full plan of what he wanted to do, and everything was working just the way he said. He was there for probably 2 months after I got there, and they fired him. And then everything changed when they went to this booking committee.
Right.
Horrible. Worst thing in the world, a booking committee. You had guys on the roster that are wrestlers, and they booking. So their job was to get themselves over.
Right.
Worst thing in the world.
I love it.
It was.
Well, you know, when Russo came to us, when Vince Russo first came to WCW, that is what he explained about WCW. He said, your guys always want to get themselves over. He goes, from every person that's ran WCW, they try to get their friends and themselves over. He goes, I'm not even going to be seen on television. He goes, I'm going to keep my face off TV. And he had a meeting with every top guy single. And I was considered a top guy then at that stage, so he met with me one-on-one, and he told me this story. And in a few weeks, he was like our champion. So he had done the same thing that everybody else had done. He had got himself over, and it was just crazy that he told us what the problem with WCW was. And then all of a sudden, I mean, at first he had the Harris brothers as his camera people. Mm-hmm. It was his voice, and the Harris brothers would do what he would say, and he stayed off camera. And then it wasn't long, man, when he got the bat and was beating Goldberg and beating Sting, and then he was our world champion. It was crazy. But booking committee's bad, huh?
Yeah, the booking committee is bad, very bad.
I love it. Okay, so now, when WCW took on, so did they keep pushing you there with when the George Scott guy left, or what happened with you there at that stage?
I got lost in the mix.
Did you?
I got lost in the mix.
But like released, fired?
No. I had a contract.
Okay.
But this is one. Let me give you an example of what happened. They brought me in. I'm working with the Iron Sheik. Okay. You people shut up and don't say USA.
How many times you do that?
So anyway, this is what they did. They said, okay, Ranger, we're going to take this, you and the Iron Sheik, we're going to take it to a whole nother level. So I have the American flag, he have the Iranian flag. Legitimate. So they said at the Omni, this is what we're going to do. We're going to really get some heat. We're going to have the Iron Sheik, and then we're going to have Rip
Rogers.
Rip Morgan.
Oh, Rip Morgan.
Rip Morgan hit you with the thing, you turn over, you're in the middle of the ring, they're going to cover you up with the Iranian flag and leave you laying in the ring. That's going to get some heat. I said, okay, I'm all for it. We do the gimmick, they leave me in the middle of the ring, covered up with the Iranian flag. So that happened on a Sunday. We had TV taping on Tuesday, and I'm in the back getting ready, and I see the Iron Sheik doing, we got the monitors in the back, and I see Iron Sheik doing an interview. I tell you people, I want Sting. I want Sting. Where's Stinky at? I want Sting.
Yeah.
I'm like,
thing.
wait a minute, what happened? This was Sunday, and and
Booking committee.
Booking committee. Let me tell you what they did with Iron Sheik. Sting beat him in 4 minutes.
Why?
It was the booking committee. Worst thing in the world, booking committee.
That's great.
Listen, if you ever go somewhere and they have a booking committee, run.
That's great. So from then, now we're talking about. I come in. I'm in WCW 1991. Where are you at in 1991? Are you still with WCW?
No, I had my contract ended in '90. I went to Japan, wrestled for
Inoki
Baba.
Okay, Baba. The other one. Okay, all Japan.
I went to Japan, and then I come back and I worked up in North Carolina with Atlantic Championship Wrestling with Steamboat, Robert Fuller.
Yeah, the Fuller brothers.
We had Nasty Boys. We had what's his name? The MMA fighter.
Ken Shamrock?
Ken Shamrock was there, but he wasn't Ken Shamrock there.
Right.
He was Vinny something.
So he did pro wrestling and then MMA And then came back to pro wrestling?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought he was just MMA and then got into pro wrestling after that.
No, he was.
I'll be dog.
Dean Malenko was there.
Okay, Malenko.
We had a great crew.
Wow,
we had a
great
crew. Yeah, we had what's the guy who wrestles Dr. Clown?
Big Josh.
No.
He was Big Josh too. The original Doink, right?
But yeah. Matt Bourne.
Matt Bourne was Big Josh for us. He was a big lumberjack. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
He'd fall and sit on you.
Yeah.
Flannel.
Matt Bourne.
Matt Bourne was the original Doink, right?
We had a good crew there. And
what was he there? Was he Doink or was he?
No, he was Matt
Bourne.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had Steamboat. We had a great crew. It was George South. No, George South was there. He would come in and out. But we had George Scott was owner. Him.
Oh, so same guy that WCW. Okay, wow.
Yeah, George Scott and what's his name? Paul Jones. Paul Jones.
I remember Paul Jones.
Love Paul Jones. But anyway, and I did that, and then WCW called me back. They called me back.
What year?
This would have been 91.
Okay.
They brought me back.
I remember because I remember you being there at the time I was there, and I signed September of '91 is when I first went to WCW.
So what they did, they brought me in. They wanted me to do. I did this thing. I don't know if you saw it live at the Superdome. I did an Australia rappel from the top of the Superdome.
No.
Down to the ring.
For
one
how
hand.
many?
WCW.
You did?
Yeah.
That's 300 feet.
I know.
Because I saw Sting did it one time. Years after that, you done it way for him.
I did it in I did it in September of '89. So I was the original.
No doubt about it.
And I did it from the Superdome. I did it one hand. I had an American flag in this hand and a rope in this hand, and I come down
300 feet, brother. It was 280 something feet.
But so what I did?
Sting almost didn't do it.
So what I did was where I did it from was actually about 225.
Okay.
Because they had a scoreboard.
Yeah.
So I had to go down to the scoreboard and I had a catwalk.
Okay.
And I went from there. But anyway,
That's still a
I did that.
long way,
and
brother. Woo.
So the Gulf War had broken out. They called me back, give me another contract, and they wanted me to do it. They was going to wrestle at the CNN Center. They wanted me to do it from the top of the CNN Center down to the ring. But what happened was they ended up, for security reasons, they didn't have the show in the CNN Center. But they gave me a contract. I think I worked maybe 1 or 2 times, and I sat at home and got a paycheck.
That's typical WCW.
I sat at home and I got a paycheck.
Hey, brother.
Every 2 weeks I got a paycheck.
I know. Now, unfortunately, I worked, but still it was like a pretty light schedule, and every 2 weeks we were getting paid. I remember being on several golf courses with Sting and saying, Steve, I mean, don't you feel a little guilty about us playing golf? He goes, no, brother, I work hard, we work hard, Mark. And I was like, Steve, we worked twice in 2 weeks. He goes, just hit the golf ball. But no, he goes, Mark, you just got to do, you're doing good, you're doing what you're supposed to do. There's nothing wrong, but we were just trying to, it was right before we started getting a little bit hot with WCW doing the Universal stuff. So it was just, he goes, Mark, just believe me, he goes, you'll be working, just give us some time, and we were.
Once you get on the road and you're doing, about 300 days a year, you enjoyed that time at home.
You sure do.
Yeah.
Where's that golf game at?
Where's that golf game at?
Well, man, it was so fun. So to finish it up, so during my main run would have been, 93, 4, 5. Where were you at 93, 4, 5?
Well, I had got out of the wrestling business. I had shoulder.
So you got out?
Yeah, I got it. My shoulder got messed up so bad.
Have you ever had surgery or not?
I've had 3 shoulder surgeries.
Okay, but no replacement or nothing?
No.
Okay, no. I told you mine's replaced, but I wish I wouldn't have done it. But so go ahead.
Well, mine was, they had to go in and cut off an inch of my collarbone. And this is what the doctor told me. He said, we're gonna cut you right here. We're gonna cut off about an inch of your collarbone. We're gonna clean the sawdust out, and we're gonna sew you back up. And that's exactly what he did.
And
it worked. It worked fine, man.
It looks fine.
Man, I hit you with so many left, you'd be begging for a ride.
Well, man, I want to thank you for your time today. It's so much fun to catching up with you guys at the CA. We're at the CAC here at Cauliflower Alley Club, and it's my first time. And you're actually a member here, right?
Yes, I'm a lifetime member.
Lifetime member. That's a big deal.
Actually, I am the CAC official chaplain.
Well, looky there. I did not know that.
Yes, I am.
Well, I
Well,
love
you'll
it.
see me on stage. I'll be doing the prayer and invocation.
Well, I love it.
Yeah.
And just thank you for the time. And man, it's so many good memories with you, Ranger. And just always when I see you, it's just a smile on your face. And it's like you knew the Mark Bagwell on day one.
Yeah.
And you knew the Mark Bagwell here 34 years later.
Well, let me go a little bit further. I know his whole family.
Yeah.
I knew his mom, his dad, his brother, and his sister.
Hello, Mama.
And I knew his Flo mama.
Yes, my mama was our maid and live-in family member maid that took care and raised the Bagwell boys.
So as y'all can tell, Mark Bagwell was raised by a black woman.
Yes, I sure was.
He's got some blood. He got some brother in him.
You know I do.
He's my kin with the different skin.
Thanks so much, buddy.
All right, love you,
man.
brother.
Love you, buddy. Take
Awesome.
care, guys.